Okay, we're ready to start. Welcome, everyone. This is another episode of my podcast here with Donna. Here joining me today is International Corporate Executive, Mr. Alessandro Balzi. Welcome.
Thanks for the introduction. Thanks for having me. Very nice to be here.
Thank you, man. Thank you for being here. So, yeah, I'm aware that you're one of the top ball players here in New York. You're working for one of the biggest companies. You work right in Manhattan, right? So
I do, in Midtown.
yeah, I have a lot of questions for you. So first, why don't we share, you can share with the audience, what do you do? What's your job?
Yeah, for sure. So hello everybody. I'm Alessandro. I work in a company called Deloitte. It's a big consulting company. It's one of the largest one. It's called one of the big four. I started working in Deloitte in London back 7-8 years ago, and then 3 years ago I moved to New York. It's a consulting company, so we do consulting services. What I really like of my job, though, is that I work in artificial intelligence, which I'm sure we will talk about a little bit, which is a very new and upcoming topic. I've been very lucky to study that at university, and I've been working on that for 8 years now. And so, yeah, I'm in New York. It's a great place to be, right? It's a great place for working, especially in my field. So very, very excited.
Yeah, it's great to have you here, man. Definitely, artificial intelligence is one of the main topics right now. Especially all the possible effects and everything around it. Just first of all, from listening to you, I know about Deloitte. I know about this company. They're in Peru too. It's pretty big. This is like an auditing firm, right?
So it started as an auditing firm back in, I think it's now been around for 150 years. It's starting as an auditing firm, but now the main focus, I will say, is consulting. I know the word consulting is very broad for a lot of people, but in a nutshell is going to client and try to deliver projects and value for those clients. And this could be like strategic, they could be data related. In my case, they're mainly like data related. So we try to help clients use their data to make better decision for their business, right? Put it very simply. And that spans across every industry. It can be insurance client, it can be banking client, it can be healthcare, it can be technology companies. So literally like the broad spectrum. So I think even though Deloitte started as an auditing firm, as you said, is now moving more into the consulting side of it.
Right? And consulting is a more broad spectrum. You can work in different
It's a very broad spectrum, and is a word that there's always a joke around people working in consulting because nobody can actually explain what they do, right? And people don't understand, but it's one of the biggest industry that we have in the workspace.
Yeah. It's certainly a big company. Certainly, it's a well-known company. You said something about the big four companies.
Yes.
Right, in consulting. Right?
There are four consulting company, which is Deloitte, PwC, EY, and KPMG. They're usually the big four.
Yeah. They're in Peru too. That would be PricewaterhouseCoopers, Ernst & Young, right?
Yeah, correct. And KPMG is a Dutch company. I don't really know what it stands for, but yeah, it's referred to as KPMG.
Yeah. So you said you've been working in Deloitte for 8 years. I'm sorry. I want to say that again. You've been working 8 years, yeah?
8,
right?
yeah.
You started in London.
I started in London straight out of university. This was 2016. In September, I graduated from university. I actually studied in Milan. I wanted to go and do something different, like change, escape a bit of Italy and have a bit of a change. And I applied to, obviously, a lot of different positions. When you finish university, you try to be applied to many jobs. And I got a job in Deloitte in London. And I thought just moving from Milan to London was a good opportunity and really cool. And so that's what I did, and that's where I started my career. And after 4 years in London that were great, 4.5, I think in February 2021 I moved to New York City. Straight after meeting my wife, actually.
Right. Who is my sister? For those of you who don't know, I don't know if I'm going to put that because I don't want it to sound like that.
Feel free.
But yeah, okay. So that was your first job.
That was my first real job, if you want. I don't know the word real is. I
Official job or like
official. So I before that at university I was an intern at IBM. So I work. IBM is a software company, and I work in Dublin in IBM for 3-4 months. But it was just an intern while I was in Dublin, Ireland, which was another amazing experience. But it was just like an internship. Before that, I had other jobs, but not related to my field at all. I grew up being a lifeguard in Italy because I'm on my town is on the sea in Riccione. It's a small town on the east coast of Italy, and the standard job there in summer when you finish school is like to go to the beach and actually help out, right? So many people are involved in just helping out with beach activities and setting up stuff. I used to be a lifeguard, mainly on a pool actually, not really on the sea, but on hotel pools. Which is one of the most boring jobs ever, but it's a cool job, I guess. People like to wear the lifeguard, the sign in the back. It's nice. But
looks good, and you get to talk to the people and all.
you get to talk to the people. Everybody looks at you with some sort of authority. It's cool.
That's cool. So you learned how to swim when you were very young.
I did. My mom, I think my dad too, but my parents, they put me on water straight away. They were really good for that. They understood that it was important. Also, like coming from a beach town, like you sort of have to learn. So yeah, I learned very young.
That's good. Yeah, I love the beach. I'm also from a beach town. I was never a lifeguard, but yeah, I did some swimming very early. But we're talking about your work life, your work experience. You mentioned AI, right?
Yes.
Pretty much the biggest thing, like everyone's talking about it. What are the consequences? What is it good for? What is it? Right? And I mean, how did you get interested in AI with this? Because you were looking for it? Did you end it?
So I was very lucky, I think. So I studied engineering at university. So already that put me a little bit in the spectrum of creating and doing things. And then my focus was on computer science engineering. So my 3 years, my bachelor in Italy, you have 3 years of bachelor, and then you have 2 in which you can specialize in something. And when I decided to specialize, I honestly had no clue. Like many people probably they're there and like, what am I good now? And to be honest, at the time, artificial intelligence, this was 2013, so it was like still relatively new. It just sounded really cool. It just sounded like, I'm going to work in artificial intelligence, like, helping machine things. There was this concept behind it, nobody knows. So I just picked the field because I think it was nice. I knew it was coming. I would have never thought that, it became the field that it is, right? So it was a bit of luck and a bit of like, being in the right industry at the right time. And so I actually studied it for my master. My master was part in Milan, and then I also went to Tokyo for at Tokyo Institute of Technology, which is a university in Tokyo, to do research on machine learning, on artificial intelligence. And then when I came back, I knew that was my field. And so the jobs that I start working both at IBM and also in Deloitte, they were like all focused in artificial intelligence. And since then, I never left.
Yeah, IBM has always been pretty much ahead of the curve, in technology, right? They were maybe one of the first.
It was definitely the first company probably to sell computers, to produce computers. They were ahead of the curve a lot for artificial intelligence too. They had a whole division called IBM Watson that was this supercomputer. Like many people are probably familiar with. They played the Jeopardy. Like they had actually Jeopardy is a big quiz games in the US.
Jeopardy.
And they had a machine like don't remember what it was called, but like it was actually playing Jeopardy. It was probably Watson and outperforming many human players. And so that became the machine was actually playing the game Jeopardy. There's many videos online and of this machine like completely outplaying and Jeopardy is a very difficult game because you're required to have a great knowledge, general knowledge and all. And so it was big, IBM at the time. I think recently, after the advent of the more digital born company like Google and others, like I think IBM starts slowly a little bit declining and struggling a bit to find their space on where to be in terms of innovation. Yeah.
There's so many big companies now, Google, Facebook, you
Yeah.
know, even Elon Musk, you know, is
Yeah, Elon
investing
Musk,
in
many.
technology.
Yeah.
Yeah, so were you always good at computers since you were young?
I was the among my friends. I was the person that when a computer was breaking down, I was the person that they would call. It was like, "Can you fix this one?" Or I was the one that was always like geeking out a little bit and tried to. I think at the time the one of the coolest thing we were doing is that when you were trying to play video games on your laptop and you didn't want to buy them, like you could go and buy them or you could go and download them, but if you download them, you had to crack them to try to like make them work because most of them were not working. So I was really good in all of that.
Right.
And then, I mean, when I joined university, though, it really changed, right? Like for me, I learned all of the things that I know about coding and programming and general like data science for like university. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's, I mean, you know, like if you have this knowledge and this ability, you know, like using the computer for some people is really hard, you know?
It is, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
And back then it was even harder, you know? because
Yeah,
it
back
was
then it's
something new.
not like right now that people grow up and I think I had my first phone when I was I don't know, maybe like 14 years old, so I was
Yeah.
still fairly late. Now people have a phone when they're like 5, right?
So I gave my son a phone when he was like 3 or something.
Right.
But he knew he figured out how to use it. He didn't even know how to read and he used it. So I figured the sooner he learned, you know, eventually he's gonna work on it and
I agree.
make money, you know. So,
I agree. I think it's important to have technology and have them familiarized with technology. I think many schools now are actually teaching how to code and how to program very early. I learned those things mainly at university. I think we had a very bad course at high school, but it was really bad, and it was like in a very old language, which was
basic,
called
maybe.
it was called Pascal actually
Pascal,
for people
yeah,
that
I heard it.
nowadays is useless. But now I think people are learning Python and coding in Python at high school, if not even like secondary school, like early elementary school or whatever. So
Python, JavaScript, and stuff, right?
yeah, JavaScript and others.
Yeah, it's a very good skill to have. The one thing that I've noticed with my son, though, like I gave him the phone and all, that he is really like, he want to buy a video game, and then he like always remembers this. He never forget. Like next time I see him, oh, there I want this video. Like he kind of gets obsessed with like when I buy a video game. So, and that's the thing he always remembers. Like maybe it was too soon. I don't know. But still, if he's good at it, it's gonna be better for the future. You know?
Yeah, it is gonna be better, and they're definitely gonna have an advantage over even us, right? And for sure, the people that are older than us, that they just started with technology very late.
Yeah. Well, back then it was mostly computers. There was. Did you ever work on DOS?
What is DOS?
DOS is like Common Prompt.
Oh, in the prompts, I
Yeah.
didn't know, not much. It was not. Did you used to do it or?
I used it, yeah. That was when Windows 3.1, Windows
Come out.
3.11, you know? Yeah. And I remember DOS, you just like write C and double colon, how do you call this? Like doble punto?
Semicolon?
Semicolon, and then you access the drive, and then you type dir, and then you see the list of the files.
Oh, the files that are coming out. I had a Linux machine when I was growing up. I had Windows when I was a kid, but then at uni we got Linux machines. So I think the comments were like similar but a bit different. But yeah, it was.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to know about that. So, well, then, okay, let's move forward in
Yeah.
time. You said that you were in contact with AI back in 2012, 2013.
Yes, correct.
Right, and how was your first encounter with AI? What did you know about it? Do you remember?
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't know much about it. I feel it was a very new field. It was up and coming. There was this idea. Probably is the idea that many people have now that I had probably at the time, that is like, oh, can we make machine learn, machine think, machine get better? but I didn't know anything about the theory behind. I didn't know anything. All of those things I learned. Many people don't realize that there's a lot of statistics and mathematics behind artificial intelligence, right? To learn it. My first encounter, I think, real encounter, was at university. We had like a few classes of robotics, a few classes of machine learning, which is a sort of sub-branch of artificial intelligence, a lot of classes about logic, and I just fell in love straight away.
This was in university, right?
This was a university, yeah. Like it was my beginning of my master's at university.
Your master's?
So my fourth year. Yeah. Okay. So in Italy, you have 3 years as a bachelor, which is more general, like more like it would be for me more engineering. You specialize on computer science, but it's general computer science. Mm-hmm. And then after 2 years, after those 3 years, you have 2 years of specialization into a particular topic, and that's where I picked machine learning and artificial intelligence, and I start getting to know those things and at courses specifically about those disciplines.
Yeah. Well, so my understanding of artificial intelligence is like you can get a machine to learn stuff, so it can pretty much eventually start acting as a human being.
Yes.
Right? But that's a little bit too far, like,
yeah.
Right?
So yes, so it's complex, right? There are many different ways to interpret, and I think also the definition itself is not. There's no really consolidated definition also like around the community. But you're totally right. The idea of artificial intelligence is to try to instill thinking into machine. In the past, this used to mainly be like on using logic and very sequential actions. So it was not really thinking. But more recently, the biggest thing that has changed is that there has been the advent of what is called machine learning. So machine that can learn from data, right? And they learn using a statistical method, mathematical methods, right? So that's the idea behind it. What you said, eventually, like the idea for people is to at least what was taught, especially when artificial intelligence started, was to have what is called the general artificial intelligence. So like this fact that machine can actually like behave like humans, right? And fully what you see in movies like on if you saw iRobot or Blade Runner, right, where like machines are like in the sort of humans. The reality is that we're very, very far from that. There's actually a lot of debate in the community whether is ever going to happen or not, because machine learning has limitation, and I can talk a little bit more about those. But so I think like the conception that often people have is probably not really like where the reality is at the moment on experts, right? And on people that work on the field. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've always been really interested in computing and in technology. Of my understanding of artificial intelligence, you work with databases, like really big databases, data, crossing the data, that feeds information, right?
Yes.
For the different outputs that you might need, like maybe creating a picture, creating a movie, or...
Yeah, correct.
Right? Well, so, I mean, like, other than being interested in electronics and all, but there's this part of it in the understanding of the physics of it, right? Like the electricity that goes into it, and the binary code, and I kind of like know a little bit about it, like, I don't want to get too much into it, but in artificial intelligence, it's like, you mostly work with data. Yeah. You mix the data and this, but also there's like an aspect of the machine learning, like it's always getting new data.
Correct. Right? So the basis is data. That's why data became, there was a quote, I think a few years ago, now it's a bit old, but I think it was one of the, I don't know if it was Google or one of those biggest companies that they were saying that data is the new oil. Right. Like as oil has been like transforming, industries in the past, data is now transforming like, the way we are, we work, and right, we make business. I think that's why there's so much importance for company to like even try to acquire more data, try to sell more data. Obviously, it's lucrative to sell data, but even acquiring them for companies like Google and Meta is really important. That's why they have a big advantage, because using and training that data they can teach algorithms how to behave in a smarter way. So the basis is all data, these huge databases, as you said, that without getting too technical, they were used to be a lot of like SQL, so very structured. Now they're moving more into like unstructured data, so a lot of like databases that are not the standard SQL table, that SQL, SQL, or people.
Yes. Sorry about that. No worries.
And now we're heading into and now the question is like how you can utilize this data. And machine learning, the algorithm machine learning, they're able to use data in the past to basically like understand patterns on how the data works, right? And what are the relationship between data. Often patterns that humans don't see, or that maybe will take a lot of time to get, and then produce like some sort of output, some sort of like knowledge on the back of that, right? And that's the process that we think about when we say learning for machine. That's how machine learn, right? Is probably very different from what a human does still, but the idea is that you throw them like a lot of data, they're able to understand, differences into it. For example, if you give them like a lot of pictures about dogs and cats, right? They're able to see like, okay, this is a dog, this is a dog, this is a cat, this is a cat. And then if you give them like, we're not talking about 100 images, we're talking about millions. Yeah. Then they're able to like, okay, now I understand that if, this pixel is like this and this pixel is like that, then it's a cat. And so if you give me new data, I'm able to tell that is a cat, right?
Yeah, so basically they feed him a lot of cat pictures and they like kind of recognize the patterns, and then they say, okay, this kind of pictures is a cat. Now they know it's a cat. For future inputs, they will know, okay.
Exactly.
Right, so exactly. It's huge amount of data, like a lot of data.
Yeah.
And it kind of simulates the way the human brain works, right? Because you see, like if you don't call this a dog, you just see it, and then eventually you call it dog, you know what I mean? Because you saw a lot of them, and then you put...
At some point you learn from your experience, right? And you're able to do it. There is one thing to say that I think it was true for many years, and now I think it's probably changing a little bit with the new generative AI hype behind. But for most of the years, machine they're a very good complement to human, because they've been very good at doing tasks that for humans were very difficult, but at the same time they've been very bad at doing tasks that for humans were very easy, which is a bit paradoxical. But so
it's interesting.
To give an example, like machine, they overtook the game of chess or other board games like 10 years ago, right? And there's no way for a human to beat a machine on chess, right? Because the computing power in a game that is relatively simple or relatively logical, like is impossible, right, for a human to. And so world champion now, like whatever even if the world champion would play against a machine, would always lose, right? On the other spectrum, there are many fields, many areas in which tasks that are difficult for a machine, like even predicting cat and dogs, right? An image of cat and dogs. Machines are doing well now, but they're still like probably being outperformed by a 3-year-old kid, right? That just has like that spectrum of life. You will always be able to recognize a dog or a cat instantaneously. For a machine, it's not that easy. And this has always been, and that's why there is a lot of, I think the widespread notion now in the community is that the best thing is to work together, like machine and humans, right? Because the skills really complement each other.
Well, I never thought it that way, It's actually pretty interesting. Like, you put it like, machine can do some things that is hard for the human brain to do, like play chess, do like high elevated mathematics, like,
right.
Computing, Excel, like statistic predictions and stuff. But some very simple that they cannot do, but the human mind, it's simple for the human, right? So that alone says that there's like a human component that machines will never get to. Even if you feed all the data and everything, they're never going to have like a, like a spirit or soul, like a soul.
That's exactly right. And I think that's also like a debate between the community. There are people that believe it will happen at some point. I am, I think, on the other side, which I think, like, no matter how progress will be, there it will be very hard to get to the point. I mean, we will see. Nobody knows, right? How things can change.
Because there is a thing, a component that is outside electricity and knowledge. There is something that the machines will never. Even if you give them all the information, they'll be like so close. Maybe they're gonna get very close to it.
I agree.
They could be like a digital soul or something. Like
And all the aspect about ethics, and because not all decisions that humans made are based on like pure logic or pure statistics. Right? There is always a component, ethical component. There is always a component of
emotional component.
Yeah, emotional component. Yeah, really good point. Like, and those things, we might never be able to replicate through machine for the way that they are.
Yeah, totally agree. I agree on that. Yeah, and that makes me feel good because I always feel like a human being is someone special. If you were able to replicate a human being with a machine,
it would be scary.
Yeah, then you're not so special at all. Yeah. After all, okay. Like moving forward with the next topic, you know what they say, first industrial revolution was making machines that could work harder than the human body, right? For producing a lot of products, like production in line and all, with lifts, all that. And now the second revolution is creating machines that are doing the work of the human mind, like faster, more powerful. And then some people have this idea that as AI keeps evolving, just like before we made an atomic bomb, we made something that could destroy us all. What is the possibility of AI moving forward that it could be able to
destroy?
Yeah, or have like a fatal ending, or is this a possibility?
I think so. Big concern. We're, as part of like the things that we're doing, we're actually trying to write on the topic of, for example, autonomous weapons, and try to understand what is the impact and how what is going to happen in the future. I think though there are already, my view on that one is that there are already enough powerful weapon in the world that can destroy the world, right? So I think is the key in many ways is to how you regulate them, right, and what you make out of it. I don't think personally like the stopping any progress on AI is the solution, right? Also because I obviously work in that field, and I think there are so many advantages that can come out of the technology, but the key is to how you regulate them, right, and how you regulate the bad things that can happen. AI is scary in many ways and probably different from things that have been created in the past, in the terms that before, like if you think about nuclear power that you mentioned, atomic bomb, right? That's something that is difficult to build, and it's difficult, even a state that they need to put a lot of effort and a lot of resources in building nuclear power, right? With AI, it's a bit different. AI is a commodity that once it's developed, everybody can access it, right? Like, large language model like ChatGPT that are already like quite powerful. Everybody can, like a random person anywhere in the world can go in their laptop and access it with very low cost, very low. And that's scary, obviously, if you think about the repercussion that can have, like in autonomous weapons like drones or anything that can be lethal, right? So huge challenge I think I had in regulations, and I think the world is not doing enough, I think, to tackle the problem like in a direct way and in a urgent way, right? And I think finding that balance is going to be the key, because I don't think AI is going to cause the end of the world, but like it's definitely a concern that needs to be addressed.
There is a concern mostly on autonomous weapons. That's what you're saying, that the weapon could start firing on its own, or that anyone could access a weapon.
Correct.
A very powerful weapon, right? And what about the idea that the AI could start evolving so much that it could start evolving by itself, on its own, and then it could take control? Maybe that's a little crazy, right?
Yeah, it is a bit dystopic, I will say, of a dystopic future. I think AI is still, it could happen in the future. I think AI is still very narrow in terms of what it does. So like you program AI for a specific task and it would do great on that specific task. But we don't really have AI at the moment that are general, that can, they do that one and they do that one and they do that one. Usually an AI focuses on, like, you train an AI that can recognize images. You have an AI that can write you an essay. You have an AI that is an autonomous weapon, right? But you don't really have a general AI that combines all of those yet. And I don't know if,
they're gonna get
maybe we will get there, right? But I think if we will, I think that's definitely like in my mind lower priority concern as opposed to like autonomous weapons that are real and are actually happening now.
That's the real concern, right?
Yeah, at the moment,
The
yeah.
autonomous weapons.
I mean, this is an intervention, but I was thinking of the movie Her of Joaquin Phoenix. That he fell in love
With an AI.
Okay.
And when you were talking about
That's
these
good.
complex, easy things that you would think are features of a human being, whether a machine could actually fall in love or feel love,
That's the thing. That's why I want to address this, because like you think, like, there's been an evolution in computers and in technology and in the internet. Like, you remember the time where there was computers but no internet, and then there was internet but it wasn't a big computer, and then there were phones. So now there's internet and phone, and then there's AI. But now it sounds like AI is this huge leap, like it's so big that it could create like humans, like computers can fall in love, and it brings you this whole new universe, So it sounds like a separate thing. It sounds like everything before is a different, and this AI is a totally new thing. But it's actually kind of like more of the same, but with more power. You know what I mean? It's such a different thing.
Yeah. So the way it works is the reason it became now so prominent, especially with generative AI. That for the people that are listening that they don't know what it is like basically what people call now ChatGPT, right? That is the most famous.
AI.
So the whole area of ChatGPT, which is just like a small application, right? But the whole area is called generative AI, and the idea behind it is that it's part of artificial intelligence, but you're generating new things, content, right? Before, I think AI was mainly used to make predictions and forecasting and things like that. Now it's more like on the generation side. And the reason generative AI exploded and the boom is mainly because of the increase in power of computers, right? Because to learn for an artificial intelligence to learn out of data, they need to have a lot of data, but we're talking about billions and billions of data points. But to learn out of those billions of data points, you need computing power, because otherwise is a task that can take like 10 years, 20 years, which is something that now with the new advent in hardware and software, it can take a few hours, and that's the big gap, right? So that's why I don't know if you follow stocks, but the biggest company that I think is now as the second biggest market capitalization, more than Apple, is Nvidia. Nvidia is a company that was famous in the past for making chip for computer games, for graphics.
Yeah, the graphic card.
The graphic card, right? Now their biggest market is GPU, which are graphic processor unit, I think. And that's where generative AI model are trained, and powered. So every company like ChatGPT or other like generative AI, they need to train their model into GPUs, and they buy GPUs from Nvidia, which at the moment is almost a monopoly. And that's why like Nvidia became, I think now the market capitalization is bigger than Apple. It's probably the second in the world after Microsoft.
So you're saying everyone who wants to develop AI need to buy this from Nvidia?
So if you want to develop a large language model, a model that like ChatGPT, now you need to have you need to run it somewhere. You need to have a GPU. You can go on the cloud, like maybe use, I don't know, Google or Amazon, but they will still use the hardware itself. The actual physical component is made by NVIDIA.
Right. Yeah, that's good info to know. We're going to take a break. I really want to talk about your job, your personal life, okay? I want to thank you for having me in your house, really.
Thanks.
Staying in New York, he's hosting me here, and I really appreciate it. And yeah, we're going to take a break, and let's take a break.
Hey.
Yeah.